Hey, happy Monday to you. Welcome on in to lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I am Joe Roderick, joined by the returning Mike Claiborne after a few weeks off. I think, Claibs, is that the first time you've seen the intro for this?
No, I saw it before. We got to change. We don't have to have as many nostalgic photos in it. We have to find some stuff, but I like it.
I mean, we'll change that up, man. We'll get some new stuff in there. Sam Masterson did the work there, man.
He did a good job.
I have sat and tried to do some video editing for this site and for what we're doing, and I've sat there for 6 hours at a time looking at that, and then I don't even save the work that I do. I just give up and just close my computer and and just walk away from it because it's it takes a lot of patience and a lot of skill that I do not possess.
You know what? I don't know if people understand how much patience you have to have. Even though the digital age has made things easier, there still requires a sense of patience in making sure you get it right, and because you have more resources to work from. So kudos to those who can, and kudos who know that they can't and acknowledge it, so they can get out of the way and let somebody else who's a more trained professional do it. It's all about reps more than anything else. You just got to do it.
Absolutely. We got the football games to get into today, but first I just want to talk about the just how cool it was this weekend to see St. Louis come out for the Royal Rumble this weekend at the Dome at America Center. Over 44,000 in attendance there, Claibs, and it was a really fun night. And St. Louis showed again why they are they're a wrestling town, a sporting event town. When you bring the big events here, people in St. Louis show up and they make it worth their while.
You make a great point about it's an event town. I can't think of a major event that hasn't come to St. Louis that hasn't been met with great reception. Whether it's in Olympic sports, wrestling, even concerts. I mean, St. Louis shows up in the surrounding areas. I know people from Kansas City who drove over for the wrestling, got in the car crack of dawn to get back to go to the Chiefs game. So St. Louis has been able to draw people from around the area, around the state. But it's something about, man, if it's a legit event, we do support it. Give me your thoughts, though, on the product, because I'm of the belief, and I'm an outsider now. I don't watch it as religiously as a lot of people. I don't know if there are enough good, entertaining wrestlers to go around between what we see with WWE and some of the other spinoff associations. It doesn't seem like the quality from where I sit is there, although these guys put in a ton of work to be prepared to go out and put on a show. I just don't know if it's as tight as it used to be. So you tell me, you're an expert.
I will say this: they have 5 hours of television per week, 3 on Monday, 2 on Friday. The quality of the product right now does not seem to be good enough to fill all 5 hours. But at the end of the day, at the end of the Royal Rumble this past Saturday, you are now heading to WrestleMania with the possibility of having Ronda Rousey face Charlotte Flair, the daughter of Ric Flair, in one main event. And the other main event is Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns, the two biggest names in the company. There is no wrestling company, there has never been a time in wrestling where you could put those kind of headline names up as the main event of your biggest show of WrestleMania. That's going to be the first weekend in April. And that's what sets them apart.
Where's that going to be?
That is down in Dallas this year.
At Jerry's World?
Yeah. They'll get, and it's 2 nights too. So you're talking about trying to sell 200,000 tickets for that. One on Saturday, one on Sunday. And this is why, when it comes to that, this is why they already have multiple billion-dollar television deals with a few different companies. And if the rumors are true, why they're going to end up selling to Disney in the next 5 years for billions of dollars and become an even bigger product than they've ever been.
Yeah, it's here to stay. I just hope they have the product to keep it up. But then again, when you look at it, if you're the biggest game in town and you allegedly have the best product, what difference if it's not good, because there's nobody else that can match up with you. That's why I said I think it might be a shortage of good wrestlers. One of the things, as I look at it from a distance, and you have these, I guess you can call them minor leagues or minor associations where guys
Independent
can
wrestling, yeah.
they can hone their skill, and then they get scooped up by WWE. So maybe there's a way that those players or those athletes develop at another level before they get put on the main stage.
Yeah, in some way, I mean, it's, you're not going to go to a Springfield Cardinal game and expect that guy to be there for the next 15 years. He gets good enough, he's going to get called up to the big leagues. So it's the same way it works in every company. And that's the way it works there. But the drama on Saturday was not as good as the storylines that we saw yesterday, as the NFL couldn't have written it any better. Stan Kroenke is going to make back some of that $790 billion million that he wrote to the city of St. Louis with the Super Bowl being in his place in 2 weeks, and the Rams being playing in their second year in a row that we have had the host team playing in their stadium, which never happened. The first 54 Super Bowls never happened. And now it's back-to-back years with the Buccaneers playing in Tampa and now the Rams playing in LA. It doesn't do much for the whole, NFL scripted conspiracy theorists out there.
Let me go back to something you said about him having a chance to make some of his money back. I'm not sure if he is going to make as much as you may think. And here's why. He's basically providing a facility. The league takes it over. The league controls ticket sales. The league distributes the funds from the Super Bowl to the other owners. So what does he get? A second share of 32? He doesn't make money off the concessions. The league controls that as well. So how he's going to make money, maybe he makes money on parking or something like that. It's not as lucrative of a deal as one would think. Just like winning the Super Bowl used to be a money loser for the winning team because of the travel, because of all the other things that come with the Super Bowl, with employees and rings and everybody who's got to go. Now, Kroenke saves himself some money. He doesn't have to travel anywhere. But overall, it's more of a prestige issue than it is actually, I'm going to make a ton of money out of this. And you said 790. I always say 6 billion because when you think about the nearly 5 billion he spent to build the stadium, you think about the 790 or let's say 800 that he wrote out to move. You think about the under the table money and all the other money that they spend on lawyers around the world. He's probably closer to $6 billion. And I think it's going to take a long time for him to make his $6 billion back.
And he has other avenues to make that up in. If, the fans of Arsenal end up having to pay a little more to make up what he lost to St. Louis, that's probably going to happen in the long run there. But it's, it's for St. Louis fans, the whole Slay the Dragon thing to get the settlement and to do that. In the end, yesterday, it was the Rams who were holding up the NFC trophy going to the Super Bowl. And I think losing that lawsuit was the last thing on Stan Kroenke's mind as he was standing up there on that podium.
It was well worth it to him.
Yeah. That's as for as many years as he has gone, being known as an owner that had all this money in the world and never won anything. And it had fan bases all around the world hating him for the way he ran his teams. It's now another opportunity to win the Super Bowl for the second time in 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, 4 years. I kind of got over the whole Kroenke thing. My only issue with Stan Kroenke was in his method of departure. I understood it from a business standpoint. I understood it from a team standpoint. But he was deceiving in how he did it along with Kevin Demoff. I mean, Kevin Demoff was a bigger asshole in this than anybody because he was the one who was speaking negatively about St. Louis. Stan didn't talk to anybody. But when it's all said and done, it's a business deal we all would have taken. We probably would have handled our exit a little differently, or at least made the loss one that didn't require somebody taking us to court. I would have made sure I would have made some things better for people here in St. Louis. But he didn't do that. So, to hell with him.
I will be out there all next week, leaving Saturday. So we'll have coverage all week long from Radio Row, doing the show, the lunch show out there, plenty of video and interviews all week long. So
And you may be
follow
the only
along.
guy from St. Louis out there.
I will be. I mean, I don't see anybody else that would go out there. So
Channel 5 is not going to send anybody because they're in the
No.
middle of the Olympics. Channel 4 doesn't even have a sports department, and Channel 2 barely has one. So, I think you'd be the only guy out there. And
You know
maybe
what?
somebody from the Post would go out there and do some sort of backstory, but I don't know why, because we don't care about the Rams. I care more about the Rams being a good team compared to what they did to St. Louis, because there's nothing I can do about it.
If Martin or Frank want to hit me up and have me send them back some coverage, they both have my numbers.
I think Frank would certainly appreciate you giving them a call.
Yeah, so they can they got my number. They can let me know if they need any of that. As for the games yesterday, the other side of the Rams, the Bengals making their first trip back there. Is it 88 or 89?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't even remember that one. I'm pretty good on memory, but I don't remember that one.
It's been a while, but Joe Burrow has taken a 2-win team, tore his ACL last year with and then 4 wins last year, now leading the team to the Super Bowl. That offensive line, we had the show yesterday. Me, you, and Howard Richards had the show yesterday beforehand, talking about the games, and I think all three of us were a little skeptical about what that offensive line would look like after just getting destroyed the week before, and they held up. They held up. They allowed, I think it was 1 sack the whole game, and that allowed Joe Burrow to stay on his feet and make a second half comeback.
Joe had to run for his life a couple of times, but to your point, I agree. And something that I think we've kind of overlooked. Those 5 or 6 guys who are part of that offensive line, they probably feel the heat and feel disrespected more than anybody, because nobody believes they can do their job. And who's to say those guys didn't get together and say, you know what, we'll show these people, that we can play and we're deserving. And, we were talking about this yesterday, you and Howard and I, about bulletin board material. And he kind of said sometimes it works. I think in this case, you didn't have to put it on a bulletin board for those offensive linemen and know that they're being questioned around the world about their ability to block somebody. And maybe they came together and said, you know what, we'll be okay. And like I said, Burrow ran for his life a couple of times, but other than that, I thought they kept him reasonably clean. And their running game was solid yesterday.
The defense, was it more the Bengals defense, or is it something that happened with Patrick Mahomes? Because you look and they drove down very easily, 3 touchdowns right away. They got down there and they were inside the 5-yard line with a couple seconds left in the second half, and they chose to go for the touchdown instead of going for the points. And you saw Eli Apple come up and make a huge play on Tyreek Hill to end the first half with no points at all. And then they just come out in the second half and they aren't able to do anything until that field goal at the end.
First of all, I didn't have a problem with them going on 4th down. I felt like that was the turning point in the game, because if they score a touchdown there,
was that 4th down, or I think it was still 3rd down, but I think there were only 3 seconds or 4 seconds left. Right. Yeah, there had to be a quick hit.
But I would have gone for it. I would have, I wouldn't have kicked the field goal, because you could have kicked the field goal there. It was
the play call for me.
Yeah, you got to have a play that's going forward.
Yeah.
A lateral play at that point on the field, it's too easy for everybody to get there. So that was the first mistake. Obviously, they didn't execute. But I would have called it. I would have done the same. I would have called something to score. I would have gone for it. But here's where I think the key is, and you kind of touched on it. If you're the defense, hey, boys, we just made a goal line stand. And guess what? We're going to get a chance to do it again, because they're going to get the ball in the first series. And what they do, they went 3 and out. And that seemed like that set the tone for the rest of the half. I thought Patrick Mahomes didn't show the aggressiveness that we've seen in the past. He was a little bit more passive. A couple of those sacks were created because he held the ball too long.
Yeah.
And he just didn't seem to be as assertive as we've seen him And maybe that was part of the problem early in the years. I try and go back and think about some of the things that he was struggling with earlier. But yesterday, he just didn't seem like he was the Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if he hurt or what, because it wasn't like he hadn't seen those looks before. They just didn't have the ability to adjust. Receivers didn't come back to the ball. There was a lot of things that took place, and you have to give Cincinnati part of that credit.
Cincinnati, they let Kelsey get his, they let Tyreek Hill get his, and everybody else they stopped.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in the NBA. You let the one main scorer, you're saying, you know what? Hey, if he goes out there and scores 60, that's fine. Everyone else on the court's only going to get 20.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. And they held him under control. But, hey, listen, you got to tip your cap to Cincinnati. They battle. I think one of the things that comes into play, they don't have a lot of household names other than Burrow and their receiver. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who can tell you name, 5 other guys on offense and defense. I mean, they just aren't household names, nor is their coach. So they're new to this party, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes them an underdog that people will certainly start to gravitate to.
So early predictions. I know we'll talk much more about it next week, but early predictions on the game that we'll see on February 13th between the Bengals and the Rams.
Rams have more talent. They have more proven talent. Cincinnati is a team of destiny that is justifying their existence by showing that their talent is pretty damn good too. So I'm going to say initially the Rams. And I may change that because here's the one thing that Cincinnati does that I think is so important at this time of the year. They're very disciplined. They don't take a lot of penalties. They know their assignments. I don't know how hurt they are from yesterday, but I think this will be a closer game than people think. I think what's the line 4 as we speak? That's going to move a little bit one way or the other. But I like the Rams by a little bit only because their talent has been there before. And, I'm kind of rooting for Andrew Whitworth, who started his career with the Bengals. And the Bengals thought he was washed up. And he's gone on to play 3 more years or 4 more years with the Rams. And I think he's the oldest lineman in the game and the second oldest player in the game.
Is he the first lineman that's 40 to start?
Yeah. And when you look at him, and this shows you how much the game has changed. He's basically wearing shells. He's not wearing shoulder pads. That tells me he barely uses his shoulder to do anything. That was back in the day. You would block, you would use your shoulder. He doesn't do it. He just grabs guys. But I'm kind of happy to see a guy like that get a crack at a Super Bowl against his old team. And there are going to be a lot of sidebar stories that we'll be able to follow here. But it should be fun. I'm anxious to see it.
One of the big stories that has nothing to do with the game is the future of Tom Brady. We talked about it a little bit yesterday on the show, and it came out initially. There were reports that he was about to announce his retirement. Tom said, "Hold up, that's not true. Not ready for any of that." And as we sit here now, Tom Brady still has not announced his retirement. He has a radio show coming up here soon with Larry Fitzgerald that maybe there's an announcement of it, but I guess there's also sources saying that his contract, the way that his contract is worded is if he is still on the Buccaneers roster on February 4th, he gets a $15 million bonus.
It's tricky. First of all, I thought ESPN did a piss poor, embarrassing job in how they covered this. If Tom Brady doesn't tell you, then you shouldn't run with it because I think he's earned the right to do it on his terms. And it was funny. First it was Adam Schefter. Then they added 2 more guys' names to confirm it. So they wanted to put all their big guns out there to say, see, we know what we're talking about. And somebody forgot to talk to Brady. And I really hate that guys do that about an athlete who's done so much for sports. The $15 million, that might be something that can be adjusted. I don't think Brady's going to wait until February 5th to announce his retirement. I think if he does it, he'll make sure that, maybe they void it or there is some sort of walk away. So there's some things that they can do on that front. But I think overall, I think it's Tom Brady's decision. my concern is this. They got a lot of rebuilding going on in that team for next year. They got some guys, they got to make some decisions on re-signing. They got to make sure their cap number is a good one. I don't know. I think this is going to be interesting, but if he walks away, I'm good with it because I don't know if Tom Brady wants to come back to a potential rebuild. You don't have your offensive coordinator. You're going to lose another coach or two from that staff. So it may be something. Does he really want to go through that?
Yeah.
So
there'll be rebuilds all around the NFL when you look at some of the moves that are going to be made after this year in Pittsburgh with no quarterback of the future. There is Jordan Love ready to be the quarterback in Green Bay, and then a new coach down in New Orleans too. That was a thing that kind of just slipped under the radar last week. Was that Sean Payton announced that he was retiring? Said he had more things going on in TV that he was going to go do. So that too, just I don't think that got as much attention as it should have.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was doing a show this morning, and I didn't bring that team up. It sounds like they're going to look from within, and you know what? They're a half a season away from maybe having to do a rebuild. So there's a lot of different question marks that are out there. My biggest issue is we have New Orleans, Minnesota, Houston, and who else do we still that has as an opening?
Has Jacksonville announced their?
No, they haven't done. So you have 4 teams. So 2 African Americans need to be head coaching because we apparently have gone off the traditional chart of what it takes to be a head coach because we're hearing names of people who we've never heard of before, who have not been on good teams, who have maybe have had some reasonable success, but nothing of the success of both and certainly Brian Leftwich. And so I'm of the belief that 2 of those positions have to go to people of color because they have the credentials greater than anybody else that's now in the coaching search. Because Josh McDaniel, who's an assistant, obviously very successful with New England, his credentials were better than Bieniemy and certainly Leftwich. But now that he has a job, who's out there that's more qualified?
Yeah, we will. We'll cover that as the weeks go on. There you go. Football coverage all wrapped up here. Plenty of more stuff to go to here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by the home loan expert Ryan Kelly. Take a short break. Come back after this Ameren Minute.
The future of electric vehicles is beginning to grow across the Midwest, but there's a lot of work to be done before most people will feel comfortable switching from gas to EV. Ameren, Illinois President and Chairman Richard Mart gives us some insight into how they're preparing by adding more electric vehicle charging stations.
Our vision is to basically have charging stations every 60 miles or so, from Cook County all the way to the tip of the state down to the Kentucky area, and then across the state, east and west, going toward Kansas and Iowa to the west, and going toward Indiana to the east. And so we feel that within the next few years we'll probably add, we're hoping to add 60 to 70 a year over the next 5 years to really complete that infrastructure for the entire Midwest. In fact, the Midwest now has all the utilities in the Midwest are joining together to coordinate that. So, which is the first time it's ever happened that you've had Wisconsin say, okay, we're going to build our charging stations here, and Illinois say, okay, well, we can tap on here, and Missouri, this makes sense for us. So we can expand that north, south, east, and west by coordinating with the other utilities.
Back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert, also driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. And Claibs, you took a car from Mungenast Alton Toyota down to Jupiter, Florida, where you are right now. That's one of their rental cars that you can get from Mungenast.
I'm glad you brought that up because in this day and age of trying to find a car, I know a lot of people looking for cars, whether they're used or new. Got to tell you something. This Pathfinder this hybrid that I have from Mungenast has been not only a great vehicle to drive. I mean, it's got every bell and whistle you can imagine, but it also comes at a good price. If you're looking for something new or something pre-owned, Mungenast has a pretty good selection. They're one of the few dealerships that has a decent inventory. They're one of the few dealerships that has an even bigger inventory when it comes to used cars that have been pre-certified and cleaned up and make sure they're road ready. But also one of the things I think you'll appreciate about Mungenast more than anything else is the service and the ability to buy a car. Where you can look online, you can go in, they'll bring one to you. They do a lot of things that most dealerships are just now starting to feel might help them. Mungenast was way ahead of the pack on this. So if you're thinking about a car, and you probably are, you ought to think about starting with Mungenast, and that'd probably be the last place you'll need to go because they have great vehicles, great service, great knowledge. And as I mentioned, they've got a good inventory of cars. The one I have, this SUV, it is to die for. Plenty of room for family, friends, and equipment, and something you'll certainly appreciate once you go check them out at Mungenast.
I'll be coming down to get that car from you here in a few weeks, and if you could do me a favor and make sure it's a little warmer than whatever you're dealing with down there right now, I'd really appreciate that.
Man, it was 38 yesterday, 40 this morning. Supposed to get up into the 60s later today, but not what I would call ideal weather. But we'll have this one little cold snap, and then we'll warm up, and we'll be consistent for the rest of the year.
And hopefully around the time it warms up, we'll have baseball to talk about as spring training scheduled to start February 14th, still to be determined if it's going to be around then or just a few weeks later. But baseball was in the headlines last week as the newest class of the Hall of Fame was announced. Only one guy gets in, David Ortiz. That means that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens have fallen off the ballot after their 10 years on the ballot.
And Kirk Schilling too, right?
Yeah, but who cares about him?
I don't see. I really wrestle with this because I am one that feels like Bonds and Clemens, Ortiz, A-Rod, Sosa, the well-known people who have been suspected and even convicted of being drug users. I don't ever want to see them in there, and I don't care about the numbers because most of them were so arrogant that they either lied or acted like they knew nothing about it, and we all know that they were doing it. So I didn't think Ortiz deserved to be in because there was a cloud over his head too.
He tested positive.
But
he test positive?
He tested positive, and then they kind of said, well, he really wasn't a positive. He had enough people in his corner to try and come up with excuses. But I thought that he was a guy that there was just too much of a cloud over his head. There were some guys who were worthy. Yeah, I think Andrew Jones was worthy of being a Hall of Famer. I think Scott Rowland was worthy. And there were some other guys. The question is, and I've been saying this now for a few weeks, I think we're at a point where we have to allow people who actually covered these individual players. If you covered a guy, your vote means more than a guy who was looking his numbers up on Baseball Reference. I think we need to have more eyes on the players compared to trying to compare stats of today to stats of yesteryear. So those things really come into play for me. And I think the voting systems as we know it are a bit flawed because we have more people who didn't see these players voting than we did that did see them play.
There are people that are getting to vote here in the upcoming years that are my age or younger that when Scott Rowland was playing, they were in high school or college. So they're basing it off of that. They weren't there covering it every single day. They weren't talking to him and seeing other guys. You were just, when Rowland was playing, if the game was on and I was in, my dorm room or apartment, I was watching it. I didn't know. I didn't care one way or the other if he was a Hall of Famer or not. And now these are the guys that are voting on it. So it's something needs to change, whether it's the players. And that's one thing. It now with guys like Bonds and Clemens, it goes to the players. It goes to one of those subcommittees that they have for the Hall of Fame. Do you think their peers will eventually put them in?
No, I don't think so. I think that there are enough players who are on those committees who resent what these guys did. And it's not all players. You have some media members as well. I think a couple of owners are on the committee too. But I think that the old school guys have a great resentment for what these players have done to circumvent the rules and put themselves in the record books.
Getting way too far ahead of ourselves for next year's class. The only deserving name of the first-time eligibles would be Carlos Beltran, who's on that list, who has a different cloud over his career and the way it ended in Houston with the trash can down there. But it's a good thing for a guy like Scott Rowland, who was just a few votes away this year. You would expect him to maybe gain some momentum going into next year too.
I think you touch on something that's important here. There's only one first ballot guy that's going to be eligible. And with that cloud over his head, I don't think he goes in on the first time around. I got to know him fairly well. I think he's one of the classiest people I've ever been around in the game. He made a huge mistake because he was able to pick up on something and he took full advantage of it and he spread the word to others. But his skill set was there. His professionalism was there. So I have no problem with that. But again, he's got a cloud over his head. Yeah, I think guys like Rowland, Andrew Jones, Todd Helton, or some guys are going to probably get a little longer look because I don't think you want to have too many years where the Hall doesn't admit anyone. That's not good for the game.
No, and that's where some of those subcommittees have come in recent years and helped make that day worth going to for fans and with the speeches. So it's it'll be seen next a year from now when we get to that. Here locally, Claibs, the Blues keep on rolling, but they had a little bit of a hiccup over the weekend in an afternoon game. As I don't know how much you've been following them down there.
Yeah.
Is there a goalie controversy right now with the Blues?
Well, I don't know. I think there is to a point, but I think I can give you 5 or 6 million reasons on why they're going to let Bennington go as long as they can. And, this is kind of reminiscent of when Jake Allen had the big contract. And, he was struggling and they still kept running him out there. And then when Allen got hurt, they brought in Bennington because Husso and Allen both went down. They brought in Bennington and the rest was history. Now we see that he's struggling. Some will tell you that's who he is. Others will say he's just going through a slump. So it just depends on what side of the street you're sitting on. But I think that there is because the team plays harder in front of Husso. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Now, Saturday was one of those situations where I think everybody was looking forward to the vacation and forgot they had a hockey game. And it was Winnipeg. So let's just throw our sticks and gloves on the ice and we should beat them. Well, Winnipeg had some different ideas because they were finishing up a long road trip. And they came in and took 2 points from the Blues. And it was not their best effort. I think the word effort would stand out because we didn't see enough of it. What does that say about the next portion of the season? I guess we'll have to wait and see. They got a lot of time off. I think the key for them is to heal up, don't get positive, and be ready to go down the stretch.
Yeah, that was before that game too. A very bad loss last Monday to Calgary.
Yeah, but they made that up though the other night. They made that one up against the other night. So
they did. And right now, as far as the Blues go, as far as the playoffs go, there are 7 teams that look to be pretty locked in their playoff spots right now. Blues being one of them, and then it's going to be a battle for that 8th spot.
And there's going to be a real battle for it because there's a lot of teams that are still battling. And I think the question is, when you get near the trade deadline, or you're a buyer or a seller, and are you buying just to get in the playoffs and no real future after that? I mean, if you're buying to get the A spot to go, 4 games against Colorado and get sent home, I'm not sure if that's a good investment. So I think some teams have to really make a decision on how far do they think they can go with a trade or perhaps 2. But the Western Conference, man, is loaded. And there's going to be at least 2 good teams that won't be in postseason play.
They are Blues are off now until February 10th. So no Blues games for about the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. And, between COVID and the Olympics, that's the reason why. So hopefully they can rest up, get healed up, stay away from COVID, and be ready to go. I think that this team is still lacking a physical presence. What I've seen in the last couple of games, the teams were basically not necessarily taking liberties, but they basically didn't respect the Blues as physically as they should have.
Are you looking forward at all to the Olympics?
That's a good question. Yes and no. I'm looking forward to some of the events. I'm looking forward to the speed skating. I don't really care about the hockey. So I could take or leave a lot of, I'm not a figure skating fan, so I could care less about that. So I'll try and find the sports that we normally don't see on TV that have some reasonable amount of interest, like skiing, downhill skiing, the luge and all that. If it's on, I may watch it.
That's where I'm
else,
at with.
If it's something else that's better on, I don't get into the opening ceremonies or any of that stuff. I think that we've allowed politics to have too much of an impact on the Olympics. But then again, it's always been that way. You can go back to when Avery Brundage ran the Olympics, maybe one of the most devout racists that wasn't behind bars, and how he ran the Olympics. And you see some other people who've been under the take in getting money. It's an illegal operation. You think about them, you think about the NCAA, you think about FIFA. They're all people that have questionable backgrounds and certainly unscrupulous intentions. And the Olympic Committee has been that for a long time. And the World Cup. You think about how does Qatar get a World Cup? Yeah, they changed the calendar to play it because these guys paid enough people under the table to make sure they could have this event because the weather was too hot.
Yeah.
So I'll watch a little bit of it, but I won't be obsessed with it.
That starts up this Friday, and I'll watch when it's on. I know they'll probably utilize Peacock for a lot of the events. So if you want to watch it, it'll be on. You don't have to flip around a lot of channels, and then NBC, Channel 5 will have all of the primetime events with all the stories and everything else that they add in each and every night. So it'll be.
Here's the thing, though, Joe. That's going to be interesting. What happens if they have an outbreak over there?
And you know what?
They've
you just
already
keep
had
moving
some
to a
people
different
test
sport.
positive.
There's enough sports there to where it'll be a bad story for them. But TV wise, if you tune in to the primetime every night, I don't think they're going to tell you about it. I think they'll just move on to another story.
Well, but here's the thing. I think the way the Chinese government monitors things, I don't know if we'll ever get the real story because I was told by somebody who's going to the Olympics, they told them to leave their cell phone at home. Don't bring your cell phone. If you want to bring one, bring a burner. Don't bring your cell phone. They think a lot of hanky-panky is going to take place technology-wise over at the Olympics. So everybody's looking at the Chinese with a jaundiced eye because they don't trust what they are capable of doing.
We will take our final break of the show. When we come back, memory of a friend of yours that passed away last week, and wrap the rest of this up here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, sponsored by Mungenast, St. Louis Acura, and this man.
The only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates on the twos, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Welcome back in as we set to wrap things up here on the show. Claibs, we talked about it a little bit yesterday with Howard Richards, but I want to let this audience hear your stories as well, as your a good friend of yours, Tim Van Gelder, passed away this last week at the age of 77 years old.
Yeah, I've known Tim for a long time. I knew him when he was a player. I didn't cover him. I watched him when he was a TV anchor. Might have been one of the best in St. Louis because he never wore a tie. He wore these alpaca sweaters, and he always had a turtleneck on. Instead of sitting at a desk, he would sit on the edge of the desk and kind of give the sports. Very smooth delivery. Just a really good professional when it came to his ability to get into TV. One of my favorite TVG stories, there's several of them, We should have got Jay Randolph on today because he could talk about him as well. But anyway,
it's his birthday today, by the way.
It is his birthday. Happy birthday to Jay Randolph, one of my best friends. I don't see him enough, and when I get back, I'm going to make it my business to get down to the Sullivan Golf Course. I know some people who went there this year and said it was a pleasant surprise. So I'm going to.
All the man does is go to golf courses and turn them around.
There you go. He certainly does that.
You should have it. You and him. If you got enough stories like that, you two should set something up this week.
Yeah, you know what? We'll do that because he's not doing anything there. I guarantee he won't be doing anything down there on Wednesday or Thursday because I understand you're gonna get some snow, so that might be a good day to do something. But so TVG, Channel 4 had this idea they were gonna have what they call big board sports. So they had this big backdrop. And TVG would stand there and the highlights would play behind him. But it was on an elevated stage, maybe about that high. So one night as he's about to start giving the sports, he steps back and literally falls off the stage, okay? There's no TVG. All there is the big board. And so the next night, TVG shows up. He's got a helmet on. He's ready for action the next night. I mean, he could always find humor in himself. He was an incredible athlete. In baseball, football, basketball, and golf. I thought he was good enough at one point to take the tour on, maybe as a senior. But more importantly, he was a kind person. He used to be Joe Namath's roommate, and Joe Namath said on many occasions, best roommate he ever had. But he was just a wonderful person. I worked with him for 2.5 years in sports talk radio, and it was 2.5 years of the funniest stuff I'd ever done. But he was just a great friend. And I don't think he had an enemy in town. He was truly a ladies' man. He was charming. He was a charming person. And he always knew how to make somebody feel good. We're doing a show one day at a hardware store. And there was this woman who came in who was not attractive at all. She was in the wrong line when they were handing out looks. And he's pulling on a cigarette. And he just looks at her and says, you're as cute as a speckled pup. And the look on her face went between the spots that she didn't have teeth. Said all you need to know. And it made her day. And I'll never forget that look he had on her face when he said that to her, because I'm sure nobody else had ever said it to her before. But he was just a wonderful guy. He was a pioneer in TV sports broadcasting for sure. A professional in every sense of the word, and just a good friend, and I'm going to miss him.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
yeah.
Well, here's another story for it. Maybe I should get Jay on to tell it. No, I'll tell it. So Jay,
save it for
I'll save it.
All right.
The biggest sporting event of the weekend, I thought was the best. Wasn't the football? I thought it was Rafael Nadal going 5.5 hours and coming back from 2 sets down.
I saw he won. I didn't see any of the details of it.
5.5
the Australian
hours,
Open,
Joe.
yeah.
Here's a guy that's going to be 36 in June and almost didn't play this year. And for him to battle, and now he has more Grand Slam titles than anyone, or he's tied now at 21. It just said a lot about him, man. I know people think, well, he might be washed up, and he was dealing, man. And he's not a little, he's like 6'1", so that's big in today's sense of tennis. But to watch him battle in the manner he did, I couldn't stop watching it. And I got up at like 5:30 in the morning to watch it.
Yeah.
But it was great tennis. I thought that to me was the best event over the weekend.
Outside of Jay, anybody else that you have coming up this week?
Well, we're going to figure out. I'm looking to get some hockey talk going this week. Alex Ferrario will do something with him. I've got somebody that I don't want to tip my hand yet, but I'll tell you about him later on who I think we're going to try and get on later this week as well. Talk some hockey. NHL All-Star Game is coming up this weekend. That ought to be a lot of fun. So we'll try and center ourselves around the National Hockey League, eh?
Sounds good to me. I know I'll have Ross Tucker on from Westwood One later this week, talking about the games we just saw and a little early preview of the Super Bowl. And then Saturday, Claibs, I'm flying out to Long Beach, running a half marathon in Huntington Beach on Sunday.
You'll love Huntington Beach.
I hope so. I don't think I've ever been down there before. If so, it was just passing by. So looking forward to that. And then I'll be on Radio Row and all around the LA area all week long, flying back the morning of the game. So,
all right, first thing you got to do when you get out there, and maybe we'll find out before that. I want to know how much Super Bowl tickets are going for. Face value.
Oh yeah, that's something I'll ask. I'll ask scalpers all week
because
yeah.
Now I want to see what their initial cost was, because somebody told me recently that that's a ticket that has continued to go up in insane increments.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was told that the upper deck starts at $500 or $600. So we'll see what happens.
Some people spend their money in different ways. I'll tell you what, you want to see, you go to one of these wrestling events and see how some people spend their money on stuff, walking around with those big belts that are, $400, $800. And you know what? Hey, I'd use that $800 and I'd go take a trip somewhere. They use it to walk around with that belt at a sporting event. So to each their own for that. Like I said, I'll be out there next week, all week long, brought to you by Trican Consulting, Kevin Miller, Caldwell Banker Gundaker, Western Illinois, and Bootleggin' Barbecue, where I was at Bootleggin' last Monday. I did the show from their Claibs as they wrapped up at their location on Wash Ave, and in the spring they're going to be moving to 4501 Shoto in Forest Park near the Grove. So best of luck to them as they make their move out there. But still, they have Bootleggin' Bob's, and they have Third Gear in the Second Shift Brewery. So still plenty of places to go get that bootlegging barbecue, as they're about to be selling the sauce and the rub and the beer and everything else that they have associated with them. So when you finally make your way back up north, Claibs, we'll go there and we'll get some lunch.
I'm looking forward to it. Hey, once again, our good friends from Mungenast, who have certainly been impactful for what we do here on the website and certainly off the website. I've got one of the great vehicles. Go by, check them out, see what's up. Pre-owned, new cars, you name it. If it's something you like, they need to order it. They'll probably get it before somebody else, but you definitely need to go by and check out Mungenast Toyota over in Alton, Illinois, the official provider of transportation for Claibs Online.
He is Mike Claiborne. I am Joe Roderick. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. If you missed any of it, the podcast audio version will be up in just a bit, and the full video will be up on our YouTube page. Go over there and check out the Claibs Online YouTube page. Claibs, I did a lot with the Royal Rumble this past weekend over there.
Checking it out.
They can you can go over there and see some of that those interviews as well. We will talk to you this week, content all week long here on claibsonline.com. Hopefully you can check out just a little more and have a good rest of your Monday.
St. Louis Acura was the #1 Acura dealer in Missouri in 2021, and we were the 17th in the nation for Acura sales volume. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and we service all of the makes and models that we sell. We are waiting for verification of our 30th Acura Precision Team Award, the only dealer in the nation with so many awards for customer satisfaction and dealership performance. We have 300 pre-owned vehicles in stock right now. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.